Yeah, sure. I'm on it.
Times are changing, and Africa is now the world's youngest continent.
Africa is the youngest continent. Majority of the population are under 35.
What are we doing about the youth? Because the youth constitute one of the important pillars that we're focused on.
Let me say the youth are not only the future in this region, but I believe they're the present and future.
If we define what do we mean by young people, there is this external perception that young people are a homogeneous group. This is not the reality. We have also young people in vulnerable settings. We have young people with disabilities, and we have foremost young women.
But again, a population that is ill-skilled and unemployed can be a demographic curse. So this is the challenge, but the opportunity is in us trying to convert this demographic dividend into opportunities.
But also young people as being the largest population, they are our biggest asset.
Because the richness of nations is not in stones, but in its people.
It's never been more important to develop our youth into confident and transformational leaders that can navigate Africa through the incoming economic and political climates. Africa's youth are faced with growing concerns about how to thrive in their purpose, and that's where You Lead Africa comes in. Founded in 2017, we are Africa's flagship youth leadership program, following the youth's greater demands and expanding our work from the East African community to the continent.
There are many challenges facing young people on the African continent. The biggest one of them is that each and every one of the young people in Africa have the desire to become a leader. I think investments should be made more to build the capacity of young people in Africa to become effective leaders.
Under globalization, the world is small. The whole world outside there has skills. We need to equip our youth with the requisite skills so that they participate properly, even in global interaction.
And this means that we need to do more to create economic opportunities and work opportunities for young people.
ULEAD for me represents that opportunity for young people to first of all think about their problems collectively and then develop, if it be disruptive strategies to take action on addressing those challenges.
The summit, it's not just a 3 days or 4 or 5 days event for young people to come and chit-chat and go home. Whatever they are saying is influencing our one-year work, what we call the post-summit agenda.
With now more than 10,000 alumni and over 30 partners, and active partner-led work in all 5 major African regions, a One Young Africa is our vision.
We have a great vision. We're envisioning 150 delegates in person, 20,000 virtually, but this is not, to me, the only success indicator. The success indicator is ensuring that all these 20,000 young people virtually provide inputs and meaningfully engage throughout the conversation, and all their suggestions are then incorporated into our post-summit agenda.
Look at 2017, just East Africa coming together, and now thousands of African young people.
ULEAD Summit 2021. We are proud to announce that we are going continental, coming together as a One Young Africa.
And we want actually to break the borders. The CFTA is here. We want African young people to come together under ULEAD Summit platform, trade together across the borders, innovate together across the borders, and create jobs as well as prosper together.
That's what drove us to become, One Young Africa. We have the potential and the capacity to do so.
From 8th to 12th November 2021, we are hosting Africa's largest hybrid summer ever with ULEAD Africa's patron, His Excellency Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, former President of Tanzania as Chief Convener, and Honorable Dr. Peter Matuki, the EAC Secretary General as Co-Convener. The theme is The Future of Africa, creating jobs, feeding and housing the world's youngest continent.
I call upon policymakers, development partners, the private sector, media, civil society, and other stakeholders to be part of and support the East African community in convening this year's ULEAD Summit.
It will attract participation from all the partner states of the EAC and indeed the continent. I thank you. Asanteni sana. See you in Arusha. Tujenge vijana wetu.
Since 2017, ULEAD Summit, as popularly known, is jointly convened annually by the East African Community and MS Training Center for Development Cooperation in Arusha, Tanzania, in collaboration with a myriad of partners.
COVID-19 is both a blessing and a curse, equally.
We have seen how the COVID pandemic has hit very hard young people.
And this is why ULEAD Africa will bring together more than 15,000 people on a single platform, because travel is restricted, but more people come together through the internet, courtesy of COVID-19.
We are welcoming a virtual and physical audience from all African countries together on the same platform.
Nonetheless, COVID-19 has reduced the opportunities for young people. Young people have lost jobs, and COVID-19 pushes us beyond the boundary to innovate and create jobs that we have lost using COVID-friendly mechanisms such as online platforms, as well as increased cooperation between and among young people across the borders, especially under the CFTA, which regards that trade should happen beyond borders of any country.
The 2021 summit will be delivered in the form of thematic forums. The Under 40 Political Leaders Forum, which examines current representative democracy models. The Under 40 Business Leaders Forum assesses the existing environment for doing business.
So it is important to engage and involve youth from initial discussion about our drive to promote Continental Free Trade Area.
The Arusha debate is infused into your lead summit to generate insights into how to make social and economic development a reality.
Yes, so the Arusha debate is being convened by ourselves, MSTCDC. As you know, we're quite curious, but also propagate Pan-Africanism and knowledge that is homegrown and bred.
Arusha hosts a number of higher education institutions, and it's the right place for hosting the Arusha debates. The Tanzanian government has been so keen under the leadership of Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan in getting all the youth participate.
The Arusha Peace Model showcases models that promote the role of youth in peace building. The Gender Equality Forum discusses ways to dismantle the structural causes at the root of gender inequality. East Africa to Bonge, a joint flagship initiative of ULEAD Africa and Kenya Young Parliamentarians Association, KYPA, to foster young leaders' legislative enlightenment. ULEAD Summit.
Fabian, over to you.
Thank you, Franklin. David, if you're there.
Oh yes, I'm here. Sorry, my video is going to be off for now, but I should say welcome, welcome colleagues. I know others are still joining, but thank you so much, all of us, for joining. And my name is Emolot Alan David, and I am the chairperson of the Independent Continental Youth Advisory Council on the AfCFTA. Mainly, as you may have seen the beginning introduction, mainly an outcome of the ULEAD Africa and MSTCDC a bootcamp, AfCFTA bootcamp that brought together young leaders from the African continent to mainly discuss about the AfCFTA. But it was in that bootcamp that it was realized that African youth actually were not in the process of propagating or coming up with this amazing treaty that we have. So what was agreed was to have an advisory council that will champion youth inclusion in the implementation processes of the AfCFTA. And this marked the beginning of the Ifcfta or the AfCFTA Youth Advisory Council. So it was launched officially by His Excellency, the former President of Tanzania. This is His Excellency Jakaya Kikwete in the presence, of course, of the ULEAD Continental Secretariat from Accra, and of course with other leaders from the African continent during the ULEAD Africa Summit last year. So we are a brainchild of ULEAD, but of course also in the process also we work with the AfCFTA Secretariat, supporting them with youth inclusion in the AfCFTA. So allow me to say thank you so much for joining in, and I know others are still joining us, but we have to start. We have amazing speakers that are going to be sharing with us amazing information around the AfCFTA, specifically youth and women inclusion, and how best this amazing agreement can benefit our women in cross-border trade, our women in the small and medium business enterprises, but also the service sector. It's usually ideally forgotten when they talk about the AfCFTA. We forget the service sector, but our panelists are knowledgeable experts in the AfCFTA, and I would want all of us to enjoy. What I can only request is always, if you have a question as they are presenting, kindly leave it on the chat. And back to you, Fabian. And I wish all of us, let's enjoy the session. Thank you, thank you. Yep. Back to you, Fabian.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to the second episode of the CFTA Youth Engage series. The topic is how the CFTA will benefit the women in informal cross-border trade, the SMEs and service sector. Tonight we have amazing speakers from different backgrounds, from different places. Let me go ahead and introduce you our speakers. We have Mia Vedel Jorgensen from UNECA. She's an associate expert in economic affairs and African Trade Policy Center. We have Ms. Nadia Bakov. She's from AUC. She's the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Associate, Women, Gender and Youth Directorate. And we have Ms. Jonita Nasua. She's a Program Associate, Women in Economics in Southern and Eastern African Trade Bloc. We have Ms. Kuludu Baghori. I'm really sorry if I'm butchering your name, but please go ahead and stop me there, from the African Union Youth Ambassador for Peace. And we have Ms. Andile Mthomboni, Country Champion Ekaka from South Africa. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Before going in depth to our discussion, let me go ahead and give our speakers a few minutes to introduce yourself in addition to what I've said, and also briefly address the general benefits of CFTA to women in trade. Ms. Nadia, let me start from you.
Good afternoon, good morning to everybody. It's evening here where I am. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, Fabian. As already mentioned, my name is Nadia Mabako. I work with the Women, Gender and Youth Directorate at the African Union Commission. Just wanted to point out, I think in the presentation you spoke earlier about the youth division. So it's no longer really the youth division. It's now been embedded with the Directorate for Women and Gender. So we are now working for women and for young people on the continent. So quickly, maybe let me just give a quick brief background as well as to why we're doing the work we're doing under the entrepreneurship unit. So it is a known fact that basically the continent has one of the highest rates of female entrepreneurship on the continent, in the world. We have, and then half of this demographic is really in the informal sector, making it really complicated, very hard to actually have accurate statistics on where they're working and who they are. We have about 100 million young people between the ages of 15 and 35. I think this was mentioned earlier in the video. However, 1/3 of this demographic is still unemployed, and there are only a handful of job opportunities to actually saturate these fresh graduates, these unemployed young people. Statistics show that only 1 in 6 young people in that demographic actually have wage employment. So as a consequence, many turn into entrepreneurship, many turn to having their own startups. And why is that? Because, I mean, we don't want to fall into extreme poverty. We turn to entrepreneurship as a source of income, as a means of survival. And then, so one of the challenges, or one of the causes for this, I hope I'm not really repeating from what was already said so much in the video, but just to reiterate, one of the major issues, one of the major causes of these challenges, these problems that we're facing, is that, as I already mentioned, the young people are, this demographic is really turning to entrepreneurship to look for sources of income, so that not to fall into extreme poverty. But one of the also major problems or major challenges that they face once they endeavor into entrepreneurship is the lack of access to skills, or the lack of access to adequate skills. The world is transforming. We're transforming into the fourth industrial revolution, and it is no secret that Africa is still lagging a little behind. We're still transitioning from the second industrial revolution, and it is a question now as to whether we are going to leapfrog into the fourth, or we're going to follow the trend and the journey that developed nations have gone through. And then there's also obviously the lack of access to finance. In this very 21st century, there's still a very strong bias against women entrepreneurs in accessing funds. Venture capitals are still reluctant to provide grants to women entrepreneurs to start their own businesses, or to even expand their businesses, making it difficult for them to actually thrive in whatever solutions that they're bringing. But it's no secret that women are really the backbone of our societies. Women entrepreneurs are the backbone of our societies. They are the pillar of the economies in our small villages. I mean, when I look directly in my immediate environment, how many women farmers do we know? How many women are selling? When you go buy your fresh produce at the market, imagine how many of these sellers are men. Actually, a majority of them are actually women. So we have that. We have the lack of access to information as well. There are many opportunities indeed, despite the fact that, yes, we still have a lot of efforts to go through in making opportunities, or in developing, generating opportunities. There is also still that lack of access to these opportunities that are there. We have so many institutions that are trying to push for the agenda of the young women, agenda of youth, but we are still lagging in accessing this demographic, these people that we're targeting. So there is that major issue. I know from experience that even the young people that we're targeting, the women that we're targeting, a lot of them don't even know about the policies. I mean, Agenda 2063, for instance, is the blueprint of the African Union Commission. Everyone knows about the African Union Commission, but not many actually know what the Commission is doing. And then there is the poor regulations. Yeah, we have now agreements with the AfCFTA, such as the AfCFTA, but how much are our states, our nations, our governments actually adopting the frameworks that have been proposed under this agreement, that are actually abiding, that are actually changing their policies to make this agreement work for their population, right? And then last but not least, we have the lack of infrastructure. Yes, we spoke about the local vendor in your community, but how far can his produce reach, or how far can his produce go? We have poor roads, we don't have buildings that can actually sustain, this large number of entrepreneurs that are in the informal sector. So this is something that we still lag behind, and this is something that's worth consideration. Now, going to quickly looking at my notes. So going to now the work of the directorate, the work of the AU as well, for young women and youth. I'm not sure if many here are savvy of the 1 million by 2021, but basically it's an initiative that was launched in 2019 to under the aspiration 6 of Agenda 2063 of promoting sustainable and inclusive development. And development cannot be done, sustainable development cannot be done without the largest number of the population of the demographic of the continent. So one of the raison d'etre of our directorate, of the Women, Gender and Youth Directorate, is really to scale up opportunities, strategies and initiatives such as the AfCFTA for young women and for youth and young women. So we are in the process of launching the next level of the 1 million, which now expands the scale, seeks to expand the scale to expand reach actually of the strategies that we intend to implement under this initiative. So under this initiative, the next level is seeking to target 10 million young entrepreneurs, 10 million youth and women entrepreneurs through a multi-stakeholder partnership with private sectors and public sectors. So what this flagship aims to do with entrepreneurs and solution makers is basically to generate youth and women-led market shaping solutions, market shaping innovations, and to build, of course, the technical capacity. We spoke about the lack of access to skills, and to build, obviously, the technical capacity of these young people, of these entrepreneurs and these solution makers, so that they can, so that we can scale impact, right? Because we cannot reach each and every African on the continent, but we can scale a reach. We can provide the technical capacity that hopefully will create that ripple effect in communities, that hopefully will create that ripple effect in the outcomes that we are seeking to achieve. And last but not least, create an ecosystem, creating an ecosystem of all the stakeholders that are involved in entrepreneurship, that are helping push the agenda of entrepreneurship on the continent. That's institutions, private and public sectors, you, me, and everyone involved, basically, so that we can help each other with access these opportunities, these solutions, and promote and scale these solutions. I think I've said so much. I've said enough. Let me just put a pause to that for now, and happy to come back should there be any questions. Thank you very much, and over back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Nadia. Thank you so much. You've actually went and answered all my follow-up questions there, but thank you so much. I'll come back to you with other questions from participants. Participants, I see that you're actively engaging in the chat box. Please go ahead and put your questions if you have any questions at all. Now I'm going to address my next question to Ms. Mia. Mia, can you please discuss on perspectives of development partners in supporting women to take advantage of the CFTA opportunities, and a general overview of how women can benefit out of the CFTA as well?
Yes. Hi, Fabian. Hello, everyone from the youth advocacy, and hi, Nadia. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak at this event. I am very happy to be here today. To jump into the role of the AfCFTA in women's economic empowerment. First of all, the agreement recognizes the importance of gender equality, and also for improving export capacity of informal suppliers, MSMEs, and they also emphasize the importance of youth inclusion within the agreement. So it is mentioned as a particular priority in the AfCFTA agreement, which is always good to have as a priority within the agreement, because that gives us a mandate to continue working towards that achievement. Other areas which the AfCFTA contribute to women's economic empowerment is that there are projected increases in exports of the female-dominated sectors, and that includes sectors such as in manufacturing and agriculture, and particularly on creating value addition in the value chains within these sectors. So these are sectors where women are particularly engaged in the continent, and the AfCFTA enables small and medium-sized enterprises in Africa to tap into larger markets and then to develop their value chain by using the economic diversity in the continent, and then to use this diversity to get new technology and be able to create more value-added products, which leads to better wages, more jobs, and these are some of the issues or some of the benefits which are going to impact female-dominated sectors, which are going to have a positive impact from the implementation of the AfCFTA. There are also some other mechanisms in the AfCFTA, such as the Annex of removal of non-tariff barriers. This includes customs cooperation and trade facilitation, and it has some mechanisms which address non-tariff barriers in Africa. And addressing non-tariff barriers are very important for particularly women in cross-border trade, as it reduces the cost. So it simplifies trade across barriers, and thereby it reduces the cost. And this also helps women in informal trade to incentivize to formalize, and thereby creating a larger opportunity for profits, because there is a reduced cost in the removal of non-tariff barriers by having more simple processes, and also by having lower tariffs, first of all. Moreover, there is a protocol on youth and women in trade, which are going to be developed in the AfCFTA. It is something that has come along the way. As you know, the AfCFTA has been ongoing in the development for a good many years now, and is now in the negotiation process of phase 2. So phase 1 is about to be finalized, and now we're moving into to the phase 2 part of the negotiations, where we are going to negotiate on the protocol on innovation, intellectual property rights, investment and competition policy, the digital economy, and now we're also going to include a protocol on women and youth in trade. And this is particularly interesting to see how we can advance women and youth, or how we can address the barriers women and youth are facing to trade within this protocol. So this is a great opportunity. We will do what we can to harness. On informal cross-border trade, it provides a very important source of income for vulnerable people, and especially for women. In the SADC region, female traders, they account for approximately 70% of informal cross-border traders. Moreover, in West Africa, there's as a food deficit region, informal cross-border trade accounts for about 30% of intra-regional food trade, and is important for food and nutrition security. So this also has a really big impact on nutrition, and also we come back to the agricultural opportunities which intra-African trade creates, to both boost trade jobs, but also enhance the food and nutrition security. Speaking of the importance of participation of women in trade, there are various roles of women in trade. The informal sector is women are heavily represented in the informal sector, but there are also some significant challenges for women to contribute or to get out of the informal sector. For example, many of the women are unbanked. Nadia, she addressed the financial issues with lack of finance for MSMEs, of women-led enterprise MSMEs in Africa. And also we don't have any formal measurement of informal cross-border trade, because it is in itself informal, so it's very difficult to measure. So the AfCFTA incentivizes women in informal cross-border trade to formalize, and it also addresses some of the barriers which women are facing. So with these two main challenges which are being addressed with the AfCFTA, so there are really some new opportunities created for women in informal cross-border trade. Some of the other constraints women they meet at the market. It includes access to assets, also access to markets and networks, skills, standards, and technology. So these are all areas where capacity building is really important in order to be able to leverage the capacity women has of boosting intra-Africa trade and also for, of course, boosting women's economic empowerment. ECA has a dual approach to women in trade and also women in cross-border trade. Firstly, we have gender mainstreaming strategies. We have gender mainstreaming strategies in our AfCFTA national implementation strategies, where we make sure that we take a gender-sensitive approach to ensure that the challenges and the challenges that women meet in accessing in trading are being addressed, because women's empowerment and the trade facilitation for women does not come without us taking any actions. We have to take some very conscious actions, and our gender mainstreaming strategies in the national implementation strategies of the AfCFTA is a good angle to start of advancing women in trade. Then we also have some targeted measures for women's empowerment and gender equality, which we are also advancing. I don't know how good I am on time, if I should continue, or if we should maybe stop here and then take some other speakers.
You can go ahead. You have a couple of more minutes, and then
Okay.
I'll go ahead to other speakers. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, so the AfCFTA really is an opportunity to leverage the agreement to create more equal opportunities. There is, for example, some tools which are being created along with the AfCFTA, which are going to help address the barriers for women in trade. And one of these are the online portal for non-tariff barriers, which is monitoring and reporting where traders can go into the online portal, and then they can report on the non-tariff barriers they are meeting to trade. And this sense, we will be able to monitor and report, and then eventually eliminate the non-tariff barriers women they face. Moreover, the customs cooperation and the trade facilitation are also key to address the challenges. There are also some technical barriers to trade, such as sanitary and phytosanitary measures, where ECA, for example, are providing some technical capacity and some technical assistance, and to be able to apply or comply with these SPS measures. And these SPS measures are really important in order to access markets beyond the national borders. So these are really key to access international trade. Some of our recommendations for making intra-African trade work for women at the national level is to mainstream gender considerations in the national AfCFTA implementation strategies. It's also very important to include women's business associations and the gender-related government agencies in consultations. Moreover, it's important to encourage women's participation in and gender considerations in decision-making and negotiations. So we should get women on board in the negotiations and be able to listen to what are the particular challenges which they face, so that we actually can address them. Because as I said previously, if we don't do anything, there will not be a change. The AfCFTA is not going to be a solution for itself for improving for empowering women in trade, but there has to be some conscious decisions and some policy actions which reflect our goals. And then lastly, to leverage partnerships to support inclusive implementation, it will also be very key. There should be provided training and capacity building for women's organizations on how to leverage benefits of trade agreements, and also to advocate for inclusive trade policies. So we both need capacity building for women and trainers, but particularly we also need to advocate on the policy level for inclusive trade policies. There needs to be built linkages between the larger players and the smaller players to make sure that these opportunities for strengthening value chains are being harnessed, so women's lacking access to business networks is very, very important, and building linkages between larger and small players can be a facilitator in achieving this. I think I will stop here for now, and then we can I can take any questions, or I can go in depth with any of the points I have raised.
Thank you, Mia. Yes, definitely. I'll come back to you with questions from participants. But now let's go on to peace and security. So I'll invite Ms. Collard. Please correct me if I'm poorly saying your name, but I want you to discuss with us on how women participation in the CFTA will contribute to peace and security of the African continent.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and it's fine for the name. Allow me please to introduce myself. My name is Khouloud Barouri. I'm the African Union Peace Ambassador, Youth Peace Ambassador for Peace, representing the North African region, alongside with 4 other fellow ambassadors representing the Eastern, Western, Central, and Southern African regions. Thank you so much for inviting me today to be part of this second episode of discussion. And before proceeding to the question, I would just briefly like to give an insight or a small introduction about the Youth for Peace program and our mandates as ambassadors. The Youth for Peace program is a 2-year mandate for the AFCFTA. Actually, it's a 2-year tenor mandate. It's a program that was launched in September 2018 that supports the incorporation of the youth in peace and security. And the overall mandate of the program is to mainstream youth into the AU's peace and security agenda. And our role as AFCFTA is to advocate and to promote for the Continental framework alongside with other projects that we are currently working on to develop and to work alongside with the Y4Peace team to actually promote the importance of youth in peace building. The importance of the implementation of the AfCFTA in terms of peace and security is actually a big matter, is a big subject of discussion right now, especially if we talk about the nexus between the agreement and the Women for Peace agenda. There lies the significance of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement in connecting the major pillars between the Women, Peace and Security agenda, which should be considered definitely by the AU member states. The link between them is actually to look for the essence of incorporating women in both frameworks, because both are about investing in a development strategy that will lead to a long-term peace and inclusive communities. Also, if we are talking about why peace and security is important when it's linked to the Continental Free Trade Agreement, we are actually looking for ways to secure the position of women, especially in the post-conflict areas, which is considered an important point to discuss. The reason why I mentioned the post-conflict areas is because the economic empowerment for women represent one of the key pillars that can boost and enhance the regions or the countries who are in post-conflict environments. And therefore, I think the agreement is actually targeting a strategy that addresses the structural barriers to women's economic participation. We can also tackle the gender inequalities in terms of accessing resources and opportunities. All of these are important to promote the economic security and independence for all women in Africa. And to be able to actually relive or re-empower these post-conflict environments is actually by incorporating and introducing gender mainstreaming approaches, and that is definitely in the trade industry. Most women actually in Africa has been facing a lot of struggles and challenges, especially in the trade industry. And as I heard one of the panelists mention the infrastructure issues, this is definitely one of the struggles that is still being facing women in terms of the infrastructure and discrepancy and the border conditions for the traders, putting them at risk. So I think that when we talk about peace and security and the role of the AfCFTA agreement and how it can actually boost for the implementation of strategies that can protect and enhance women's situation, especially ICBT. When we talk also about peace and security, we are talking about all of the aspects that the word holds. We're actually talking about the aside from the challenges in economic situations or environmental situations, we're also talking about the health side. We are also talking about the situations that women are facing in the industry. I'm also considering the link between the peace and security, women in peace and security agenda and the AfCFTA in connecting the dots that are still, or gaps, if we might say, in terms of, as it's one approach for the African continent to collect the pillars of intra-African trade and women's economic development. I think it's about time to encourage opportunities to involve women peace builders in recovery efforts. And this step is a response to the call for urgent action to place women's economic empowerment goals at the heart of the African agenda. And we need to encourage the woman-to-woman partnerships for more visibility and more participation in trade. In terms of the strategies that is being implemented by the AfCFTA, I would say that all of the strategies are wide and they consider all of the continent, but all of them start at a national level. So we cannot talk about a good strategy if it's not implemented at a national level, if the stakeholders and the governments are not including national action plans that are gender sensitive and gender inclusive. So if you want to actually push for the promotion of the role of women in peace and security, we need to start at a national level, and we need to actually include the role of women from the roots, and we go broader to a broader level. In terms also of the governmental level, I think governments should recognize the role that women play in trade and ensure that this is communicated effectively and the NAPs, the national action plans, also are looking for the formalization of ICBT that is needed to complement the opportunities that are offered by the African Continental Free Trade Area. This incorporation actually is a significant potential to help alleviate the role of women, also the alleviate poverty. It contributes to the security and the empowerment of women. So as a result, this may blossom into a thriving environment, an enormous economic potential to the entire continent, and actually improve and empower the role of women in Africa. So mostly we have to consider the nexus between the women, peace and security agenda and the link that is directly shown or offered in the Continental Free Trade Agreement, and to see beyond that, and actually to have more gender inclusive approaches and more gender inclusive policies that are emphasizing on the importance of peace and security in the trade industry. I think I still have time, but I welcome questions if there are any.
Thank you, Hulud. Yes, definitely, we'll come back to you for questions. Now, before inviting my next speaker, let me go ahead and ask a few questions to our participants. You can go ahead, turn on your mic and answer these questions. They're just trivia questions to engage you all. This is a very simple one. Can you please name the head of the CFTA Secretariat? Yes, perfect. That's correct. Who answered that? Sorry, I didn't get the name.
Mia.
Oh, hey, Mia. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, I thought it was for us.
Yes. I'm asking every participant, no worries.
Oh, I thought it was for the speakers.
I'm asking all participants, no problem at all. All right, let me go ahead.
I'll leave the next question.
Thank you. So, how many so far as of February 5th have ratified the CFTA and deposited their instrument? Anyone from the participants?
37 countries.
Thank you, Moses. I think that's Moses, right?
Yes, it is me.
Thank you, Moses. 37 countries have ratified and deposited their instruments. How many have signed? Somebody else?
$53. 54.
Sorry, I'm having an overlap.
Ivan is saying 53, I'm saying 54.
Okay, which one is the correct answer? Ivan, are you saying 53 or 54?
I cede to Moses.
Moses, what did you answer?
54.
54 countries, yes, except Eritrea. Every country has signed the agreement, and we have all those ratified the CFTA. Thank you so much. These were a few questions that I wanted to ask and engage our participants. My next question goes out to, I can't see Miss Joanita in the group. Is she here? Miss Joanita, if you're here, please, can you say something?
Oh, I am here. Sorry about that. I thought I was visible. Yes. Let me.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I've been on from the beginning. Hi, everyone.
Okay.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Janita Nasuna, and I work with Siatini Uganda under the Program for Women and Economic Justice. So I await my question. Didn't ask.
All right.
I did not ask the
Yes, I do have my question. So I wanted to ask you and for you to discuss with us how women in informal cross-border trade can benefit from the CFTA opportunities. You can speak from experience, from Ugandan experience, and yeah, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much. I'll also start by giving a brief preamble about our informal cross-border traders, women. These ones dominate 70 to 80%, and it's a vulnerable category of women, but also women who are mainly trading primary products, women who are unregistered, but also these are women who are trying to dodge taxes. They are not choosing the right routes while trading, which makes them informal, but also they are small in nature. These are women who are local women that you're talking about, who have an issue with language. So there's an issue of language barrier with these women. They are having quite a number of languages. It's a mix of women coming at the border to trade, but also we would categorize these women as women who have limited awareness about customs procedures, about standardization, women with limited awareness about the non-tariff barriers that are existing in the different tracks, but also women who are very vibrant and interested in business. That also defines them. So now that we have the AfCFTA coming in, what does the AfCFTA promise these women, and what do we think are the opportunities in the AfCFTA for these informal cross-border traders? But before you talk about the opportunities for them, we would like to say that actually these cross-border women traders do not know about the AfCFTA. They can't define it. They're not aware it is there. They have little knowledge about the ESC and are trading within that track. But also, these are women who have been marginalized so much and are vulnerable. So their impression on trading and openness in trading is not yet a paradigm, or is not where they're not yet at that level of appreciation. So they are poverty stricken, but also their poverty levels have been deepened as a result of COVID-19. As you see, the borders, the border closures have really marginalized them, but also the political frictions amongst the countries, the political tensions in these countries, in the different tracks has really impacted on them and on their trading. So this is the category. This would give us a brief insight of the women we're discussing and how we think the AfCFTA can be beneficial to them. So the AfCFTA in general is allowing the informal cross-border traders to be able to operate through formal channels. Hence, it's also bringing better protection for the informal cross-border traders, which was not happening before. But also it promises removal of non-tariff barriers, which will address numerous barriers that have continued to affect the women cross-border traders. We have had cases of women crossing borders, and then when they get to the different countries they're trading, they'll find a tariff barrier. And most of these women are trading perishable products, because 43% of these informal cross-border traders are trading in agricultural products. So they are perishable. So they stand at they stand in a position of losing out, because their goods expire in the process when they meet the tariff barriers, when they meet non-tariff barriers in the countries that they thought they were trading. So the AfCFTA promising to remove the non-tariff barriers will address numerous barriers that have been affecting the informal cross-border traders, but also the political willingness of these African states to be able to join this integration. So we believe that this political willingness will bring a better and improved political drive to implement, but also a willingness to comply to the regulations and the protocols and in generally the AfCFTA agreement that they've signed. So we believe that once there's an end to these political frictions, the closure of borders, for example, the Rwanda border that has been closed, these women will be able to benefit more because they'll be going through the borders with no restrictions, but also cushioning the impact of COVID-19. These informal cross-border traders were impacted, the women cross-border traders specifically, their businesses were impacted on more by COVID-19 compared to the male-dominated businesses. So as AfCFTA is offering new markets, so we believe there shall be increased income for women that have been impacted on their businesses, but also there shall be an improvement in their livelihoods, but also there shall be increased and improved integrated supply chains and value chains in general. But also the AfCFTA as well provides simplified rules of origin that depend on the quantity of goods. So we see that in this agreement provides for quantity of goods that is below $2,000 not to have any tariffs, not to be taxed at all. So most of the time the informal cross-border, anyway, that's what makes them informal. They are trading their goods, the category of goods and the quantity of goods they're trading is usually less than the $2,000. So that means that they're going to carry out trading with no fear of tariffs or finding tariffs around along these trade corridors. So this provides them an opportunity to be able to benefit from the AfCFTA, but also an opportunity to build on regional simplified trade regimes for women cross-border traders. Like I said, these are women who would, not all of them are illiterate, but majority are illiterate. They find these regions quite complex for them and they do not appreciate them, meaning that they are not making use of them. So the fact that the AfCFTA is going to provide the simplified trade regions is going to simplify trade for them. We think that the informal sector shall be able to benefit from this avenue. But also the Pan-African payment and settlement system, which makes it flexible for women to be able to trade with any currency, but also it reduces the forex losses, which has been a problem. Trade had become very expensive. Women were incurring a lot of losses while they were trading. They had to exchange the money. Maybe if a woman is trading in Uganda, for example, and is going to Kenya, they have to change the money. And in the process, there are losses because, for example, our currency is low. So we usually face a lot of forex losses. But now since there's this system in place, the Pan-African payment and settlement system, it means that these forex losses shall be regulated and controlled. So we think that the informal cross-border traders, the women shall be able to benefit from this, but also the non-tariff barrier elimination and monitoring mechanism. And we believe that this shall be most effective with the digitalization protocol that is being put in place. And on this digitalization, we expect that there shall be an online platform whereby such information shall be shared, the non-tariff barriers in the different tracks, but also in the different countries where these informal cross-border traders are supposed to trade. Once they're knowledgeable about this information, that means it will reduce the time that is spent. It will also reduce the shocks that are felt by women as they find these non-tariff barriers as they cross borders. But also it will address the issue of perishability of their products. That means by the time the product crosses the border, clearance has already happened, and that means there will be ease, there will be quickness along the trade corridors. I think Mia has also talked about this, the room that the AfCFTA has offered for the women to be able to have women and youth
Joanita, I think you muted. Can you please come back?
Sorry, I don't know. Did I drop off?
Maybe she lost it. She lost connection.
Did I drop off?
Yes, you did, but you're in now. Please go on.
Oh, where did I stop? Sorry, I've been going on. I thought you were hearing me. Just to know where I stopped so I can carry on from there.
Like 10 seconds, like 10 to 5, something like that.
Sorry? Hello? Hello?
I think it's muted now. Somebody had their mics open. It's muted now. Go
Hello?
on.
Yes, I would. Please help me know where I stopped so I carry on from there. Where did I stop?
Sorry?
Where did I stop?
Okay, somebody was coming.
Yes, it's me. I'm not sure where everybody else lost her. I think this is when she was speaking about the cost, I think, of starting businesses, I think.
Oh,
I think mine.
And then I'll start from there.
That's where I lost.
There.
That's where
I had.
I'm not sure about the rest of the participants.
I lost her by when she mentioned about reducing tariff spent and shocks felt by the non-tariff barriers.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'll just start right there. Okay, let me just go back to the previous one, the Pan-African payment system that makes it flexible for cross-border payments with different currencies. We have been having a challenge with women informal cross-border traders where they've been facing a lot of forex rates because they had to change their currencies. But the AfCFTA is offering a Pan-African payment and settlement system, which allows all currencies. That means you're able to cross borders with your currency and be able to trade. So we predict that this will improve gainful trade, but also reduce on the losses that happen during trade. Then I talked about the non-tariff barrier elimination and monitoring mechanism. And I said that this will mainly happen through digital and electronic problem-solving platforms. Here we believe we envision that the AfCFTA shall share market information about the non-tariff barriers in the different countries, but also on the non-tariff barriers in the different tracks. So that means by the time someone trades, their goods are cleared, they are sure of the tariff barriers, and that is cleared. They're cleared with customs procedures, but also that will reduce the time spent in the trade corridors, and also will reduce on the shocks that are that these women face while trading in the other countries. But also it will address the issue of perishability, because most of these women, like I said, trading in primary products and mainly agricultural products. So usually the goods expire within the process of finding non-tariff barriers in these countries. So this will be addressed. But also, like my previous panelists said, the room for the women and youth protocol within the agreement signals delivery and commitment to inclusive free trading, but also a protocol that addresses the challenges that the women and youth have been facing while trading. But also the AfCFTA has put a lot of emphasis on trade facilitation and partnerships. So through these partnerships with intra-regional stakeholders like Trademark East Africa, Union African Shippers Councils, we believe that there shall be fast tracking of goods within the trade corridors, so that will reduce the shocks, but also it also reduces on the time spent of goods to cross through these trade corridors. So that will improve trading for also the informal cross-border traders. So those are some of the opportunities, but also, like I said, these are informal cross-border traders, women that we are talking about, and there's still a lot to address. These are women who are not aware, so there is still need of awareness creation, especially on the borders. How do we ensure that these women know about the AfCFTA, how they benefit, but also not just the informal cross-border traders, but also the customs, the customs union officers. They do not know about the AfCFTA. How, again, do we create awareness? How do we build their capacities that actually this is happening? That now the informal cross-border traders can also trade formally. They can go through the formal channels without being stopped. But also, how do we translate these trade regimes to a number of languages? Like we said, most of the cross-border trader women are illiterate. They will not understand the English. So how do we have quite a number of translated trade regimes for these women to be able to understand and also be able to take advantage of the trade regimes, but also improving the infrastructure at the borders. We find we are still in the era of COVID-19, and we still have quarantine measures along the borders. So how gender responsive are the quarantine facilities at these border stations? So how do we put in place facilities that women facilities being separated from the men's facilities? Then we also find that these informal cross-border trader women cross the borders with their children on their backs. So how do we put infrastructures like nurseries in these places for children, in case the women are still maybe clearing their goods and meeting some procedures at the borders? What facilities have we? What infrastructure is in place that is supportive of the informal cross-border trader women? But also let us put one border stop centers that provide market information. As we build on the digital platforms, how can women benefit from these one-stop border centers? But also the fact that how do we build the capacity of women on digitalization to be able to access these digital platforms for this market information? So this can also be an avenue for women to be able to benefit, but also I think Mia talked about it. How do we mainstream gender in the AfCFTA agreement in all the protocols? Because somehow they will impact on women. So how do we ensure that all the protocols address issues of women and youth to be able to carry out gainful trade? So when we address this, in brief, we believe that the AfCFTA will be able to benefit. But the biggest beauty, I think, about the AfCFTA, the one that comes out strongest among the opportunities, is the fact that they are offering simplified rules of origin, whereby women carrying out trade with a quantity of goods that is below USD 2,000 shall be able to benefit. And this specifically addresses the informal sector. So we believe that our women in the informal sector are going to carry out a tariff-free trading, which will be beneficial, gainful, and will improve their livelihoods. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Juanita. That was very insightful. Thank you for sharing the opportunities and challenges that women in informal cross-border trade face. I know we're going out of time, but we have one last speaker, Miss Andile. She's part of the Ifcfta from South Africa. I wanted to ask you a question for you to discuss within a very short few minutes, how academia can be used as a tool to ensure that women take advantage of the CFTA opportunity.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tamrat, for that question and introduction. My name is Andile Mtombeni, and as the chair has rightfully said, I am part of the Ifcfta. It's a champion for the South African the country South Africa. Thank you so much, and greetings to everyone, all protocol observed. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this engagement this evening as we close the Women's Month, but also the month of March, and engaging on this important discussion on the involvement of women, but also how various departments and in different aspects of society can facilitate the implementation of the agreement. And so besides being part of Ifcfta, I am an academic by training. I've got a master's in research psychology, and I've been doing research work largely on women empowerment, particularly focusing on young women and girls. So I am going to then share a bit of that in terms of what role academia can play. Funny enough, yesterday I was speaking to a colleague, and I was mentioning to them that, you know, there's a theorist in France who has since passed, but his name is Pierre Bourdieu, who talks about how us as academics, we've got a duty in that we need to be not only academics and put on our academic hats and speak at conferences or whatever the case may be, but we need to move beyond the academy and go to society and engage at grassroots level where we collect data. You know, we speak about research, collecting data, science, you know, the statistics. I had other colleagues previously speaking of the statistics. You know, these are all data that is collected from the grassroots. You know, these are people's stories, these are people's lives and day-to-day experience, and we get to deduce evidence or scientific evidence from that. But we've got a responsibility at the same time as academics to go back to the very same people and communicate at their level. And I think it is this previous speaker who spoke about language, you know, that the agreement, part of the agreement is the recognition of the language barriers as well. That how do we then break down scientific communication in such a way that people can understand at a grassroots level, whether it be using Swahili or whatever language that people then understand, and bring that information that is needed for the women who are engaging in this informal trade, for them to be able to benefit from the agreement together with the political colleagues who are already at that league. But Joe talks about our academics' role as being public intellectuals, right? That we need to be public intellectuals, and part of the work that we do, and I think it's one of the previous speakers spoke about how the agreement is taking into cognizance, right, the gender inclusiveness. And like I said, my work has largely been on focusing on women inclusivity, right? How does then the policies, how does then the research, how does then such agreements take into account that there's a need for equity, not necessarily equality, but equity, recognizing that different groups in our society need certain capacitating. And when we talk about the women in informal trade, we know that women are largely part of the group that is marginalized, whether it be in politics, whether it be in business, whether it be in formal trade. We know that women are largely vulnerable to sexual violence. We know that one of the barriers, I think, that hasn't been spoken about is the fact that a lot of women, whether it be at the workplace, we've done quite extensive research on sexual harassment, not only just the institutions of higher learning, but sexual harassment in the workplace. And we know that with women who are in the informal trade as well, cross-border, we know that there's truck drivers, and most of those women tend to be vulnerable to sexual violence, sexual assault, rape, and all sorts of sexual violence, sexual harassment as well. So then how do then such agreements then take that into account? So that's where, as academics, we come in to kind of then blow the horn on some of these minute, if you will, so-called barriers, that then stand in the way of women flourishing in the sector of informal trade, so that we raise that voice, and women are protected in all spheres and in all sectors. Because also coming from the background, my research, not only am I a researcher, but also from the background of psychology, right? We know that people cannot function if they themselves are not mentally and physically healthy, so then how then do we ensure that, sanitation, there's the health equity for women in such spaces, the mental health of those women who are engaged in informal trade, so that then the agreement then takes that into account, and the policy makers as well within the different countries that then have signed into the agreement, that they take that into consideration. And speaking also from South Africa recently, I'm sure you've seen in the news that we are going through the challenges of xenophobia. So all of those inter-country challenges as well, that also have an impact on the women who are engaging in formal trade. Then how then do we as academics engage with government and policymakers to ensure that there's that intersectionality? Because I don't think that the CFTA agreement is going to be a one glove fit all. There's a whole lot of other policies that we then need to take into consideration that also have an opportunity to continue to be a barrier, or could be a potential ally in assisting that this agreement is fully implemented. And recently also, in terms of academia and our involvement as researchers, we've been looking into the supply chain management crisis. We've seen that with COVID-19 in Europe. I'm sure even in Africa, we've begun to see how in certain shops, certain products have been going missing, certain aisles are empty. We've seen this in Europe where truck drivers have gone on strike. There's a lot of backlog in terms of shipping because of COVID and etc. So then that research then can also assist. We also saw it as well in Africa. I know in South Africa with Mozambique, Zimbabwe, we saw a lot of trucks being stuck at the borders. So then how does that also then have an impact on women and those who are engaging in formal trade and their businesses as well. So I think, yeah, definitely there's a lot of cross-cutting between the policymakers and government and civil society, the business sector, as well as academia and the role that we can play, but also as women in research, women in academia, because it takes one sometimes to recognize the struggle of the other. Not to say that men don't understand the struggles of women, but it is important to also have women representation in politics, women representation in such high-level agreements as the CFTA, then who can then further sensitize that gender inclusiveness so that those women then are also accounted for and can benefit from these agreements. I think I'll leave it at that for now, for the sake of time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Andile. So even though we're short in time, but I don't want to leave this conversation without giving the floor for a couple of participants to ask their questions. There's one question in the chat box already, but before going ahead and asking that question, let me introduce Ivan, if you're here, to come up, and if you have any questions or address the participants and also speakers, please go ahead. Ivan, are you here? All right. We'll get back with him when he comes back. So the question is, I'll be asking all participants if you can go ahead and briefly answer this question. So most informal sectors do not have access to information and the opportunities that the CFTA will bring. So what can or is being done to bring awareness to them regarding this? Mia, can I start from you? Go ahead and answer this question, please.
Yes, so the question was what we do when informal traders don't have the information about the AfCFTA.
Yes, and what your organization is doing to foster safety and the information gap.
Yeah, it is a very, very good question. I can take an example. Today, for example, I am participating in a media training for online publishers and bloggers. So we are engaging, we are training media at the moment and journalists on the AfCFTA and the opportunities that comes with the AfCFTA. And the goal is, we as the ECA or as the Secretariat or the AUC, they can't reach, we can't reach the informal and everyone on ourselves. So it's a job for all. It has, like, the AfCFTA implementation is an implementation which has to go across societies and across all layers in the society. So I think one example is that we are giving training to media on the opportunities of the AfCFTA and what it actually means. And I think they will then write about the opportunities. And I think that we will increase a lot of the awareness of the AfCFTA like that. So that could be an example of how we do to reach to get a wider reach on the AfCFTA advocacy.
Thank you, Mia. Nadia?
Yes, okay. So maybe I'll give an example of one of the things that we do. I did mention that we also do, I don't know if I did mention it earlier, we do as well a lot of capacity building. One of the things that we obviously, one of the realities of our works, I'm sure with my colleagues here will agree, is that we cannot reach everybody. We cannot reach each and every single person on the continent. So one of the things that we also strive to do is to create that ripple effect. We have a toolbox that we deploy for the different thematic areas that we focus on. So on entrepreneurship, we have a toolbox called Youth Development and Empowerment. Within this toolbox, we have a module called Youth as Change Agents. The idea of this module is basically to empower young people with the skills so that they can go back to their communities and create that ripple effect. Go back to the communities and replicate the skills that we seek to scale. We engage a lot with community actors. We work a lot with youth councils. We work a lot with RECs. We work a lot with the institutions that are on the ground to help to help scale these initiatives, to help scale these solutions that we're trying to create. So in terms of reaching out to the rural area, it's a fact, it's a reality. We still have a very long way to go because we did mention about the poor infrastructure, and thanks to COVID, now a lot of our work, a lot of what we do has really turned digital, and so the goal is to amplify reach, amplify infrastructures, and really reach out or spread these skills or these tools beyond the immediate targets or the immediate stakeholders that we're working with, and which is you take the work, you take the skills, we empower you, and you take it back home and you help your peers, or you spread these skills, and you also empower your community. So yes, that's basically the approach that we take with the women and youth agenda. Over back to you.
Thank you, Nadia. By the way, supporting the ECOIACA will also be good in this regard, bridging the information gap and also passing the information that's already out there. But let me invite Joanita, if you have something to chip in here.
Thank you, dear. Thank you, Fabian. Just a little more for us to understand that the AfCFTA is being built on already existing blocks, on already existing RECs or trading blocks, that is COMESA, the ESC, COMESA, ESC, which other one? The trading blocks, yes. SADC, those ones. So already we have been trading within these RECs, but also there has been already pre-existing challenges within the RECs, and the political tensions. So we should not look like one of the panelists said, we are not looking at the AfCFTA. I feel we are also over praising it or over giving it power and the energy. We should first look at our RECs and see what have been the pre-existing challenges and how do we ensure that we do not move with these challenges to the intra-regional trading. How do we address the challenges that have been pre-existing, but also the limited political commitments by the people signing the agreements? How do we ensure that this time the commitments are concrete and we shall not have the back and forth, the non-tariff barriers again in place? How committed are the countries signing the AfCFTA? But also when we look at, for example, now the EAC, we have been joined with the Democratic Republic of Congo, and we are celebrating its entry. But as we celebrate its entry, just at the border between Uganda and Congo, there is a very serious war ongoing, and millions of people are dying. So how do we address these issues? We are celebrating, while we are celebrating, there's an ongoing war in DRC Congo. So these are still the challenges that are being faced in our different tracks, the limited commitments, but also the fact that already us who are trading under the intra-regional market, we are still in a number of other trade FTAs, other trade commitments elsewhere. You see, we are trading with Kenya, and then Kenya has signed the EU EPAs. It's now signing the US EPAs. So there are all these other commitments by different countries to other different free trade agreements. Yet at the same time, they are the same countries committing to trade on the AfCFTA. So how do we address all these challenges, all these political, I would deem it political unwillingness to comply? Because as we are in the different tracks, we should be able to harmonize the common external tariffs. We should be able to harmonize the intra-regional market and affirm that we are trading in this one global market and not going out there, because they're the same products they are trading. So there's still so much to address within the trading paradigms before we address even our informal cross-border traders. Already our leaders have issues amongst themselves, but also the limited commitments amongst the countries. So, but also, what are the solutions? What are the reasons of limited commitment? What systems do we have in place for countries that will, at the end of the day, not comply to their commitments in the AfCFTA? So we should broadly look at the loopholes within the AfCFTA, especially that now we are different tracks coming together. Issues within the trade corridors. How do we address the issues within the trade corridors? How do we emphasize partnerships? But also, how strong are our partnerships? How much are we committed to our partnerships and ensuring that the AfCFTA works? So, I think we have hyped the AfCFTA, but again, we should come back and see, how do we make it work? How do we concretize it to ensure that it is not just a subject, not just a policy that looks so nice, but how do we ensure that the way it is implemented works, benefits the informal sector, but also the traders in general? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anita. I know we're running out of time. Hulud, let me give you the spot and we'll wrap up.
Thank you so much. I think the topic is very interesting, and I noticed how interesting the discussion has been, and all of the panelists actually covered most of the sections related to the role of women and their capacity building. And I have been hearing the responses, and I find them very insightful, even for myself. I would keep on emphasizing on the importance of the incorporation of the sections related to the peace and security to the AfCFTA agreement, and how that would actually be accelerator to the women's and general growth in the continent, and how we can actually work towards the implementation of these strategies that can actually push for that. So it's very important that we keep in mind that this starts at a very higher level, where the implementation of these strategies can grow from there, and also without forgetting the role of youth actually in the promotion of the agreement and its link to the peace and security agenda. Thank you so much once again for having me today, and thank you. It was very, very interesting for me to meet all of the panelists and to engage with the participants, and I look forward to the next times.
Thank you, Hulud. Andile, besides your engagement with ICOACA, do you want to add something more on this?
No, it's just to say, just to echo what the other colleagues have just said, that you know that the importance of interlinking and intersectionality between the different subgroups, you know, whether it be policymakers, those who are engaged in policies, those who are organizations on the grassroots, you know, as academics, as ICOACA as well, we've got a research office that we would be working with, and part of the research tool that we wish to engage with is participatory action research, where we not only just go into the communities to communicate with informal traders, but also capacitate them in the process. So, but that can only be strengthened and ensured longevity if we work with grassroots organizations who are already based in those communities and already working with those women and capacitating them. So that partnership, I think, strengthening those partnerships, and I think ICOACA is also going to then assist in facilitating that going forward. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Andile. Before I wrap up, if Ivan, if you're back, please go ahead and make a remark.
To do it in more than one country.
Fabian.
Good evening, Ivan. Yes.
How are you?
I'm very good, Ivan. We've been waiting for you. Please go ahead and make your remarks.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I want to start by thanking the leadership of the ICOACA, the Independent Youth Advisory Council on AfCFTA, Mr. Emoroti, Brondel, and Fabian. Fabian, I know you are the lead on international relations, and I know that you are doing a great job in terms of linking the council to international bodies, and we need to do more of that since you are in the capital of Africa. In our Amharic, Addis Ababa means new flower.
That is correct.
So we are happy to have you in the capital of Africa, and we hope to harness the networks there to make the council well known. I can see that we have already started, as I was looking at the correspondences of invitations and thanks. Now, my next thanks goes to the speakers of the day. I do not know them at heart and by name, but I saw the correspondences, and I want to thank you so much, the Youth Ambassador on Peace for the African Union, and the lady from, I believe, UNAIDS in the African Union UNAIDS office, and the regional office there. We want to thank you very much for taking the time to come and share with the African youth. Yeah, thank you very much. The names I want to read in the dictionary so I can say them correct. But I really, really appreciate your flexibility, your commitment, and your support to the team of the Independent Council on AfCFTA. And I do not know how much the speakers know about the council, because they should continue now to be the ambassadors of the council so that the council can get more support from their institutions and their network. But the council is so far an alternative voice for African young people, especially those in business and those interested in business, on how to participate in this blessing for Africa, the Free Trade Area Agreement. And in the meantime, you know that there is no structural arrangement for young people to be part of the ongoing negotiations and implementation processes. We know that the Secretary of the AfCFTA is currently working on negotiations for a protocol that will cover the issues of women and youth. And again, this being today's topic, women in trade. and the CFTA. This is very, very relevant and close to our heart. But meantime, we are not yet there, because right now they are negotiating investments, and Moses, I think, knows better. He is the technical person on our side on trade policy and trade law. But I know they are negotiating something on investment and probably rules of origin and something like this. And then in the meantime, there's a process to negotiate youth and women protocol. In fact, I thought that it would be better to have a protocol on women in trade and then a protocol on youth in trade. And then this, we are going to make sure that the council can advocate for this separation, because the women need to be given due, due right and due environment, and the youth as well. Women and youth are not the same, but I can see they have combined the two, and this is an area we need to pick up. But before I say too much, and I wouldn't like to say too much for this time, I already thanked the participants and the speakers of the day for taking off their time. It's not so easy. This is not the easiest time of the day for you to come and spend time with African young leaders and share with them your knowledge, and for them to also share with you their experiences and expectations. So this is a special commitment from you, and we do appreciate. And there is gonna be more and more. One of them is that on 29th of April, we will be launching the first ever Continental network of young CEOs and entrepreneurs. Anyone who is below the age of 40, at least 40 or below, that is in business and wants to do business, we will be launching a network that brings the continent's young CEOs together on 29th. That's one of the upcoming events. The second one, also in that, will be unveiling the Independent Council on AfCFTA. And also we'll be launching the first ever Continental study report on youth inclusion in AfCFTA, which looked at capacity gaps and policy constraints, and how we can explore reforms and initiatives to entrench youth in CFTA. These three things will be majorly launched on 29th April. We have invited the Secretary General of the AfCFTA. We have invited the Secretary General of the East African Community. We are going to invite the AU departments and agencies relevant, and Fiben, think you can help us there to map out who should we not miss out. But this is and the invitation I really wanted to bring out to all of the colleagues who are here today, and without really keeping you here long, because this is, again, as I said, a special sacrifice to be here. Instead of eating your dinner or going to dance a bit and enjoy some wine, you are here whining with us. So I want to, with these few remarks, thank you once again. And again, those who don't know me, as I finish, my name is Ivan Atuyambe. I'm the head of programs and partnerships at the Training Center for Development Cooperation in Arusha, and also the founder and program director for Lead Africa, which is also the mother program for the Independent Youth Council on AfCFTA. So thank you once again, and I look forward to collaborating more with the speakers and all of you on the call. I saw a lot of messages from colleagues who are saying we are doing this, we are interested in that. Please give them our emails so that they can get in touch and we can build a one young Africa together. Stay better and not bitter. I submit.
Thank you so much, Ivan. Thank you very much. So this is the end of our session. Thank you very much, our participants, speakers. I see that I've missed a couple of questions in the chat box, but our participants, you can go ahead and send us those questions through our social media platforms and also via our email address, ikoyaka@ulead.africa. And also, if you want to join our country chapters, please go ahead and email us through there. But I want to say thank you to everyone, our participants and speakers as well. And I hope to see you in a very different topic engaged in the CFTA. Thank you, everyone. Good night and good evening.
Thank you so much, Chair.
Good night. Bye.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
MC Benny.
Thank you.
Come on.
Bye.
Tusonga mbele mama Afrika, Afrika, Tusonga mbele mama Afrika, Afrika, Kwa pamoja Afrika, mwishani wote, ya bonjour, mama. From country to country, yeah, we gotta work together. We are leaders now, aiming higher for the better. Together, to make our nations greater, by sharing to the power. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. We will lead, we will lead. Let your dream be a reality. We will lead, we will lead. Let your dream be a reality.
Yeah, listen, together we shape young men and women. With the pillars, with the future, here we are. Let's join together with ability to change communities, with love, with peace, to respond to our need, to call for unity. Africa, hear me cry. Never leave me alone. As I say loud in a brighter future, let's join hands for youth and women. Let's join hands for youth and
So you
women.
lead, I lead, we lead together. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. We will lead, we will lead. Let your dream be a reality. We will lead, we will lead. Let your dream be a reality.
Yeah, vijana wa Afrika wote waungana, vijana vijana kutoka mashariki, magharibi, kaskazini na kusini, hata na kati, twaja pamoja ili tufanye nini?